Hi, I'm Brittany. I grew up in a small town. My dad left when I was 4, so it was just me and my mom. We never had enough money for anything. Mom always worked hard. She loved me and she did her best. I only had one memory of my dad. We were playing our favorite board game. Dad was the president of the country and I was the head of its mafia.
Give up, Mr. President.
Oh no! I was defeated by a mafia boss in diapers. We were very close, but then he up and left. As I grew older, I started asking Mom questions about Dad, but she didn't like talking about him. Brittany, your dad was on a slippery slope. He sank to the bottom and died in poverty. We're better off without him. Of course, at first that upset me, but I couldn't stay sad forever. I grew up stubborn and brave. I hated injustice more than anything in the world, and my classmates looked up to me. See? I was a born leader. There was a reason I chose the role of the head of the mafia as a kid. Before we plunge into my story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you! One day, I walked into the school and saw our principal, Mr. Hill, scolding my classmate Rebecca for something. Let me tell you, our principal often acted like a prison warden. He was overbearing and mean and absolutely hated children. Rebecca, you should be ashamed of yourself. I didn't like the way he was yelling at her, and I asked what my classmate had done. It turned out she had just filmed herself dancing in a classroom and posted the video on TikTok. This is unacceptable. Rebecca has disgraced our school. She should be expelled. Are you serious? Students have the right to express themselves. This punishment is dumb and unfair. What was that? No one asked for your opinion, Brittany. He kept shouting and waving his arms, threatening to call my mom to the school. As if that would scare me. Mom was always working. I knew she wouldn't be able to come anyway. After classes, Rebecca came up to me and thanked me for standing up for her. Mr. Hill has totally lost it. Don't worry, he wouldn't dare expel you. I worked at a branded clothing boutique after school. Mom didn't want me to get a part-time job. She wanted me to spend all my free time studying and eventually go to a good college. But I saw how hard it was for Mom to provide for us, so I got a job and didn't tell her about it. Then, an unkempt guy walked into the boutique and started to look around. He looked terribly suspicious. I was right to be worried, as the next second, he grabbed our most expensive Gucci handbag and tried to make a break for it. Not on my watch. I grabbed the handbag and I tried to snatch it back. Give it to me! Of course, he was much stronger than me. The robber almost escaped, but then a respectable-looking man in a business suit blocked his path. Leave her alone. The man in the tie gave me the handbag and handed the robber over to the police. Wow, how noble of him. I came up to the gentleman to thank him for his help, but then Mom burst into the boutique. She looked furious. Brittany, your friends told me you work here? Why do you never listen to me? Your principal said you talked back to him again. Mom finally saw the man standing next to me, and her cheeks colored in anger. She grabbed my hand and dragged me to our car. Don't ever talk to that man again. As we drove away, I tried to explain to her that Mr. Business Suit had done nothing wrong. On the contrary, he'd helped me. But Mom wasn't listening to me. She was driving down the road at breakneck speed and looked terribly nervous. Mom, what's going on? That man is your father. What? But you said he died in poverty. That guy looked like he was rolling in money. He abandoned us. Forget about him. That man is nothing but trouble. Mom was so distracted she lost control of the car and drove into a pole. Luckily, we weren't injured, but the car… This is a disaster. We don't have the money for repairs. An expensive car stopped by us. A man got out of it and introduced himself as Mr. Murphy. You look like you could use some help. I only recently moved here from Washington, but I know a guy at an auto repair shop nearby. Let me help you with the repairs. He called a tow truck and sent our car to the auto repair shop and offered us a ride home. Mr. Murphy showered Mom with compliments and flirted with her the entire time, but all I could think about was my dad. Why had he come back now? When we finally got home, Mom and I kept arguing. I was mad at her for hiding the truth from me for so many years. Brittany, I just wanted to keep you safe. Your father is a bastard. He would do anything to get what he wants. My life had been turned upside down. I didn't know what to believe anymore. The next morning, Mom left for work. I was going to school when Dad drove up to our home in a cool car. Brittany, your mom has probably already told you who I am. Yeah, a lying scumbag and a manipulator. That's not true. I came back here for you. Let's go for a ride and talk. Of course, there were a million questions I wanted to ask him, but I decided to heed Mom's warnings. No, You left us. We have nothing to talk about. I proudly got on the school bus without sparing him another look. When I arrived, I saw Rebecca by the entrance. She was crying. It turns out the principal had been serious when he said he wanted to expel her. What the heck? That means war. That was so unfair, it made my blood boil. I convinced all our classmates to start a flash mob and organize a rally in front of the school. We will make Mr. Hill treat us with respect. He's punishing us for expressing ourselves. After classes, we all came to one classroom to draw posters for our flash mob. The principal got wind of our plans and stormed in, glaring at us menacingly. Who do you think you are, the Mafia? You're not. You're just a bunch of little delinquents. I'll expel everyone who takes part in this flash mob. With those words, Mr. Hill left and I looked at my classmates. The principal's words had clearly taken the wind out of everyone's sails. All the students were pale as paper. I'm sorry, Brittany. I don't want to get into trouble with the principal. I'm out. Everyone dropped their posters and left the classroom. Even Rebecca refused to fight for herself. It wouldn't have helped anyway. Let's quit while we're ahead. Dang it. My classmates turned out to be chickens. I wanted to rip my hair out by the time I left school. Dad was waiting for me outside, leaning against his gorgeous car. A hard day, sweetheart? That's none of your business. Brittany, I've been waiting for you all day. Please, can we just talk? He might have not been the best father in the world, but at least he wasn't a coward. Stopping the robber the day before had been very brave of him. I decided to give him a chance. Okay, I'm starving. Let's grab a bite and chat. We came to a small diner. While I was eating fries, Dad looked at me with tenderness in his eyes. Do you remember the game we used to play? I've become a real president. Granted, not of a country, but of a large company. Dad said that he had to choose between his family and his career. He chose the latter and moved to Washington. My mom didn't forgive him for that and forbade him from keeping in touch with me. That's why Dad hadn't given me a single call all these years. I'm truly sorry I made the wrong choice, but I'm rich now and I could provide for you and your mom if you'd let me. I looked up at him and narrowed my eyes in disbelief. Rich, huh? Prove it. Dad brought me to the boutique I worked at and said I could choose whatever I wanted. Was he bluffing? I chose the most expensive shoes and handbags there. Dad calmly pulled out a credit card and paid for everything. Wow, you weren't lying. Thank you, this is awesome. Anything for my Mafia boss. We drove around the city for hours chatting. I told Dad about our insufferable principal and his stupid rules. My classmates are afraid of him and refuse to take part in the flash mob. No one's on my side. I am, Brittany. Let's rally together. At that moment, I saw Dad in a new light. He was different from the other adults. Dad was generous, funny, and brave. You're my hero, Dad. Later, he gave me a ride home and went back to the hotel he was staying at. Of course, Mom didn't like the fact I'd spent the day with my father and scolded me. Mom, he really regrets leaving. Dad has changed. You should give him a chance. That manipulator is tricking you. Don't trust him. Mom kept shouting at me until a car outside honked. Mr. Murphy had brought our car back from the auto repair shop. Mom was so happy and grateful, she invited him in for dinner. They spent the evening making goo-goo eyes at each other and flirting. Mom even agreed to go on a date with him. Mr. Murphy seemed suspicious to me, though. I couldn't figure out why he was so interested in Mom. I found it hard to believe it was love at first sight. Rebecca came up to me the next day at school and said she had seen a guy in an expensive suit showering me with gifts the day before. I proudly told her it was my dad. He's the president of his own company. Can you imagine? He said he would help me protest against the principal's decision. Wow. Well, if such a serious businessman is on our side, I guess I can risk it too. Count me in. Heck yeah. I'm sure you won't be the last to join. That evening, Mom went on a date with Mr. Murphy. Meanwhile, I invited Dad over. We had fun drawing posters for the flash mob and even playing our favorite board game for the first time in years. Give up, Mr. President. Oh no, I've been defeated by a young Mafia boss. After that, we went for a walk. The robber from the boutique suddenly came up to us. He told Dad he hadn't paid him for the job yet. Can you believe it? As soon as I realized what he meant, I went ballistic. Dad, did you hire this guy so he'd try and rob us and then show up and act like a hero? My father shoved some bills at the homeless guy and gave me a guilty look. That's right, honey. I'm sorry. I wanted to impress you and I didn't have any better ideas. Please don't be mad. Before I could say anything, a car stopped next to us. Two goons got out of it and ran straight at Dad. You shouldn't have come to our city. We're gonna teach you a lesson. Neither Dad nor I knew what was going on. All I could think was, we've gotta run. I knew these streets like the back of my hand, so I grabbed Dad's hand and we gunned it. Follow me, Dad. After a while, we managed to lose their trail. Dad and I ended up on the beach and took a break there. Dad, who were those guys? Why did they want to hurt you? Dad flopped down wearily on the sand and said he didn't know he had enemies either. After all, he'd only come back to the city recently. I sat down next to him and we watched the beautiful sunset in silence. That little adventure brought us closer. I realized that I wasn't mad at him anymore and I told him that. What matters is that you came back for me. We'll always be together now, isn't that right? You're right, honey. I won't leave you again. You can move in with me anytime you want. You'll have more opportunities in Washington. I pulled him into a bear hug and we sat like that for a long time. Then, Dad walked me home. Mom was coming back from her date at the time. Mr. Murphy had driven her home. He met Dad's eyes and a shiver ran down my spine. It was clear they'd known each other for a long time and they were sworn enemies. Oh, I see. You sent those goons to chase me out of town so I wouldn't get to know my daughter. Do you think you can marry my ex and get your hands on my inheritance? Mom and I looked at each other dumbfounded. What was he talking about? What inheritance? Mr. Murphy smirked and sarcastically clapped his hands. Oh, you figured out my plan. Bravo. How about I tell your daughter the truth about you then? Brittany, do you want to know who your dad is? He's the president of a company. A president? A professional slacker, that's who he is. Mr. Murphy said he'd known my dad for ages. Apparently, Dad had been born into a rich family, so he never worked and only carelessly spent the money of his mother, my grandmother. Unfortunately, Grandma had passed away recently, but before that, she had decided to teach her wayward son a lesson. His mother left her entire fortune to her granddaughter. That's you, Brittany. You won't be able to use that money until you've come of age, though. So your dad has decided to make up with you and get his hands on that fortune. He doesn't care about you. I knew he was a bastard! But why did you ask me out on a date then? Brittany's father owes me a lot of money. I knew he was never going to be able to pay it back, so I decided to marry you for the sake of the inheritance. Once the truth was out, Dad and Mr. Murphy almost pounced on each other. My heart sank. Mom and I had been used. How could I trust people after something like that? Brittany, listen. Enough's enough. You crossed a line. I don't want Grandma's money. I've never even met her. What I wanted was a brave and honest father. I'll sign all the documents. The inheritance is yours. But after that, you disappear from our lives forever. Mom and I walked into our house and slammed the door behind us. She liked my idea of rejecting the inheritance. Living like this and working hard is better than dealing with liars like your father and Mr. Murphy. I cried all through the night, and the next morning it started to rain. The weather reflected my lousy mood perfectly. I was suddenly overcome with the urge to do something crazy and right. So I called Rebecca and I told her the flash mob against the principal's decision was taking place that day. Have you looked outside? Yes. Mr. Hill should know that we're being serious. Okay, I'll call everyone. I took my poster and I went to school. My classmates were already there, standing under umbrellas in silence. The principal was watching us from the porch and frowning. For the last time, you'll all be punished if you don't stop this nonsense at once. I was unfolding my poster when Rebecca came up to me. Brittany, where's your cool dad? He's not coming. We'll do fine without him. He's not gonna come? Let's stop then. We're gonna lose anyway. Rebecca avoided my eyes as she went up to the porch to hide from the rain. The other students exchanged uncertain glances and followed her example. Soon, I was left standing in the rain all alone. My classmates looked at me with pity, and the principal smiled smugly. See, Brittany, one person can't change anything. You were betrayed by those you protected. Now you're the only one who's going to be punished. Was it worth it? I ignored Mr. Hill's sarcastic comments. I wasn't about to give up. Unfortunately, my poster with the slogan, "Let us express ourselves" on it soon got wet. I started shivering from the cold, and I didn't know if I should keep fighting or not. Then, someone suddenly covered me with an umbrella. I looked up and saw it was Dad. I promised I would come and support you. I'm sorry I'm late. I got my second wind and held up the poster higher, beaming. To my surprise, Rebecca ran up to me. Brittany is right. We should stand strong together. Our classmates got inspired by that and came back on our side. The principal panicked when he was left alone on the porch. Okay, you win. I'm not going to expel Rebecca. You can express yourselves however you want. We were on cloud 9 as we had a group hug. Even the weather changed. The rain stopped and a rainbow appeared. Soon, my classmates walked into school and Dad handed me some documents. This is your grandmother's will. You deserve this money more than I do. What are you gonna do, though? I realized how much I lost when I left you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, honey. I don't want you to change. You're so strong and brave. I don't deserve to call myself your father. Goodbye, Mafia boss. Goodbye, Mr. President. I watched with tears in my eyes as my dad walked out of my life, and I couldn't find it in me to stop him. I've decided to get the inheritance for Mom's sake after all. She's always worked hard and deserved to have a good life. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll see Dad again, but that's a different story.